Hi everyone, welcome back to the Future Skills Podcast. I'm Dan Taylor and you're joining us for another episode brought to you by Universal Skills Group. In this week's episode, I am joined by Dave Marklew from Siemens Metering. Dave heads up the technical training and auditing over at Siemens. Hi Dave, thanks for joining the Future Skills Podcast.
Hi Dan, it's good to be with you.
Thanks very much for taking the time out of what's probably a busy schedule for you. Wanted to get you on the podcast to discuss everything in the sector at the moment, really. You've got heavy involvement within smart metering at Siemens, and I wanted to kick off with a bit of your history and how you started off at Siemens and how that pathway took you along into the smart metering role that you have now. Because you're heavily involved with the training side at Siemens, aren't you?
I am now, especially. To cut a long story short, I joined the industry some 45 years ago this year.
Wow.
As a young whippersnapper apprentice at East Midlands Electricity Board. Worked my way through there. To finish my apprenticeship, ended up in the metering department, testing and repairing old mechanical meters. That changed around 2000 when they decided they were going to buy in all new meters instead of refurbishment. So I joined a company called Datum Solutions, which was National Grid's meter operations business.
Right.
More around commercial than retail. And then Siemens bought Eastern Electricity, Datum Solutions and East Midlands all within about 6 to 9 months, around 2000. So I joined Siemens from them and have been there since. Took over the training department, must be 12, 13 years ago now, when Siemens decided they were going to outsource their training instead of doing it in-house. And that's pretty much around the time when obviously we got involved with yourselves.
Yeah. How many operatives does Siemens have now then, in sort of a dual fuel capacity?
So from dual fuel, we're currently running at about 285.
Right.
But we have, I think it's 4 courses, 4 Trailblazer apprenticeships ongoing at the moment.
Yeah,
with
that's right.
Potential additional 40 coming in from that. So yeah, no, it's busy time.
Just on the new entrant route, are you surprised that continues? I remember myself going through that route many years ago, and it still kicks on. There's still room for new entrants in the smart metering sector. Are you surprised?
To be honest, I'm not. I did think the project obviously kicked off with smart metering around about 2011, 2012, when all suppliers and operators started looking at the market with the government's plan to install smart meters, and how we were going to facilitate it. And the numbers at that time for staff to complete by, I think it was 2020, were phenomenal. I did think it would ease off, and with more meter operators would potentially come on board, and there wouldn't be so much staff required. But I think it's good to see the Trailblazers still there and still going. Gives a lots of people opportunities to get into the industry and get a feel for it. And obviously we've seen some real good turnovers and outcomes from it.
Yeah, we certainly have, and it's fitting to have you on actually this week because you've been involved heavily with the apprentices on the Siemens side, and it's actually National Apprenticeship Week this week. I don't know if you're aware, and we've been putting some videos out this week, and a lot of the Siemens contractors are on there and talking about the journey, especially some of them who are sort of in the mid-40s and 50s, who, I think the stigma of you need to be 17, 18, 19 to be an apprentice, that's gone away with this route, hasn't it? Because I think on the smart metering side, it can be life-changing for some people.
Yeah, very much so. It gives people that opportunity to take a totally different changing career from what they've been doing in the past. And as you say, it's not limited to teenagers. It is sort of the mid, shall we say, 40s, 50s age range, which is attracting a lot of people coming into the industry. They want that settled job as well. So, I mean, they always used to joke when I first started work, if you got a job at the electricity industry or whatever, a big sort of utilities company, it was a job for life. And
Yeah.
everybody laughs at you nowadays when you tell them that. But, I suppose I stand stead to that myself, and I've always been in that industry.
Over 40 years.
It can be a good career. I've enjoyed and still enjoy what I do today. And obviously I've worked for Siemens Electricity Board and all the changes they went through, and then Datum Solutions, but they were all of a very similar aim and requirements. And Siemens are the same. Siemens obviously being global. Personally, I had the opportunity to go out to a couple of countries around the world in support of metering that Siemens are actually pushing out in South Africa.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it was really, really enjoyable.
What did you do in South Africa then?
So Siemens developed a smart meter, to want of a better understanding, which was contactable remotely, looking at the industrial markets around city of Shawani, which is sort of Pretoria, Johannesburg area. And we'd sold the product to the city of Shawani, and they wanted me to go out there, vet some of the engineers that were going to be installing the meters, explain what was needed. So I was out there for about 7 weeks, which was about 5-6 years ago.
Wow, I never realised. That is incredible. 7 weeks in South Africa rolling out some smart metering technology.
Yeah, it's certainly an eye-opener.
Is it?
You go from one extreme to the other in 50 yards down the street. You've got houses behind bars and brick walls, and then you've got the shanty tins propped up against a tree at the side of the road.
Wow.
50 odd yards away. So it changes very quickly. But no, really enjoyable. And obviously, it sort of promoted Siemens. We'd already got businesses out there. It was another avenue that they were following up. And I think they've actually gone out now to, I think one of my colleagues went out to Mexico, and they were looking at things down there, and Brazil.
Wow.
So yeah, metering goes worldwide.
Siemens goes worldwide.
Well, yeah,
something to remember forever, I guess, that trip.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Thinking about the smart metering side, what we currently have over in the UK, what do you see, Dave, as the biggest challenges at the moment? Because there's still lots of meters to be fitted. I know there's different things coming out now with alternative HAN. We've made some good steps with SMETS 2. What do you see over this next couple of years in terms of challenges?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be the multi-dwelling units. So where we've got high rise, and the alt HAN does sort of fit into that, the alternative home area network infrastructure. Is going to take a lot of work and coordinating, especially when you've got multiple suppliers feeding into that. I see that as one of the main challenges. The comm subs themselves, we personally are finding a few issues with commissioning and sort of various messages going backwards and forwards between suppliers and the DCC to sort of try and commission meters on site. So I think that there's quite a few things. I'm not sure whether hopefully the dual band comm subs that are coming out will try and alleviate that. They work
Yeah.
on both the 868 and the 2 gig Zigbee radio. So hopefully that will sort of make a difference, and then we'll get a bit more 100% guarantee of connection on those.
Sounds good. We've got, I think somebody said we had close to 14,000 smart metering engineers, or certainly metering engineers in some capacity across the UK, across all the different energy companies and meter operators and contractors. A lot of those have got transferable skills. They're already starting to upskill into domestic electrical, domestic installers. What's your thoughts on that, and people potentially moving into EV? We've seen a lot of it at Universal Skills over this last sort of 12, 18 months. What's your thoughts?
I think the progression's there. I think the meter installers that are going through now doing the smart metering are getting a good grounding. Obviously, you know, we've used Universal Skills Group for a number of years now, well, 10, 11, possibly even 12 years in some format or other. So we know they're getting the grounding that they need and the understanding to then progress. EV charging has got to come. It's got to be one of the biggest transferable skills that we can utilize. Sort of getting the guys trained up from metering, having that grounding on polarity, shall we say, you know, what live and neutral means, is obviously going to be a help and an assistance when they move into EV, and the domestic electrical wiring or connections that they will need to make for the EV system that's going in. Currently, Siemens have a minimal staff doing EV.
Right.
Probably, I think there's probably a half a dozen guys that are just going out, doing surveys, checking what's required, and then installing some for a trial for one of our suppliers, which seems to have gone really well.
Oh, good.
But it's given us the understanding of what needs to be in place, and obviously all the qualifications, as you're probably more aware than I am, and the requirements under, you know, a limited Part P, or whether you do need Part P, depending on where you're connecting the supply or picking up the supply port from for the EV units. But it has to be one of the biggest things that that guys from metering will look to move into.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the qualification, they've got lots of transferable skills, of course, to have smart metering engineers, and it is a limited scope to install a domestic EV charge point. However, there's no specific qualification just to take you down that route. So in September last year, there was a lot of changes in the industry. We work quite closely with NAPIT, and we've got a new domestic installer course, which is really geared towards domestic EV, but it enables them to do other things as well. It's got lots of testing and inspection elements to it. Of course, it's got the 18th edition. They do the EV training and assessment side and get hands-on with that as well. There's a new qualification that's gone in there as well called a level 3 certificate in dwellings. And what I really like about it is there's some portfolio evidence to capture. So previously, sort of prior to September last year, you know, you could really get onto a competent person scheme and start signing off your own work if you had sufficient experience and you had certain qualifications, but perhaps you'd never actually, you know, done any physical work. You know, I'd heard stories about kitchen fitters getting onto the scheme, but because they said they had electrical knowledge of more than 2 years, you know, they were able to do that prior to September in some cases. Now, things have changed a lot, but we're seeing a lot of people coming through, meter operators especially, from companies and self-funded individuals on the new domestic installer. And like I say, I think the portfolio evidence that they need to capture on the field to show that they can actually do the job with a mentor, very similar to what we've done in smart metering with their portfolios, I think it's a really positive step.
Yeah, I have to agree, Dan. It is that little bridge, isn't it, between metering and electrical installation that I suppose a lot of people will be missing. But I think it does, as you say, needs to be it needs to be fixed so everybody knows what they're actually working to. So it is a sort of recognised qualification. Like you say, it's all right coming in saying, well, I've got 2 years experience, and all they've done is walk around a building site for 2 years. It doesn't really fit, does it?
No, not at all. And of course, we've got a hell of a lot in this country of electricians that have been through, 3-year apprenticeships and have got AM2. And we're always keen to acknowledge that, people that come through a domestic installer route, it's very much a gateway into the industry. It doesn't make you a fully qualified electrician. It's a starting point really for you to expand your skills, and really your clock starts ticking from that point of your gateway into the industry on electrical. And it's up to you then to prove that you can work safely, that you can pass things like audits, you can carry out the work that's required to a limited scope, and then you can build on that knowledge and experience. And in a few years' time, potentially you can expand it even further. So that's where I see sort of the smart metering side coming in. In terms of the new entrants, as you mentioned, we've got a lot of new entrants coming through at the moment on the apprenticeship route. What would your advice be to somebody who's about to start a new entrant route on the smart metering side of things, or are potentially looking at an opportunity? Because I know there's lots of opportunities that are being advertised at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, from experience, I mean, we always come in and have a chat with sort of the new starters that we bring in ourselves, and try and explain to them what the type of industry is they're getting into, and what they can expect, if you want. It's a really good industry to get into. Some customer service, obviously, and customer interface gets you out and about. You potentially your own boss. All your kit and everything is provided for you. So, all you need to do is listen to how you're trained, take on board sort of rules and regulations, code of practice, safe working methods, stick by them, and you can have a career for life. It's a real good industry to get into, I think. Like I say, I've been in it over 40 odd years. I've never looked back once in all that time. I suppose I'm one of the lucky ones in that respect, but I would recommend it to anybody, and have done in the past, and they've gone on to have successful careers. Years ago, I was training graduates, and trying to show them how to test and calibrate meters and everything, and they've moved on now and now sort of senior engineers within Siemens. They've got that technical ability, and it's a good grounding, and gets you out and about. It's physical work. It's not heavy work, but it does give you scope to progress, as you say, from single phase up to multi-phase, and even to commercial industrial metering. If you've got the right aptitude, the sky's the limit, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And I think interesting you mentioned about the safety there and the safety mindset, because the amount of situations and scenarios that the installers go to where things are dangerous and they've got to make them safe. The way it's described by our tutors sometimes is it's almost an MOT for your house when you have a smart meter fitted, because everything gets checked and visually inspected. And sometimes, as you know, things have not been looked at for 15, 20 years, maybe longer. So the guys and girls that are coming through have got a really important part to play in the customer's properties. And if they keep safety at the top of the mind front, then they won't go far wrong.
Yeah, I quite agree. And yeah, there is a big safety concern, I think, across the industry. Obviously, we used to have meter readers and everybody going out reading your electricity meter every couple of years and doing safety checks and on the electricity as part of taking that read. That's now potentially gone to majority. Now it's all remote dial in. You are relying on somebody coming to your property to make sure everything is okay. and obviously changing all the smart meters and all, and the gas fittings as well. And bear in mind, when dealing with gas, it's not just the actual meter that's being changed, but it's potentially checking the whole of the installation to make sure everything is safe, all your appliances are working correctly, and there's no issues there. So yeah, there is a lot of responsibility on the guys, but like I say, with the backing from yourselves and the training and their underpinning knowledge, it seems to be working really well.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, it's been great to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while now. It's quite incredible, over 40 years in the industry, and you should be congratulated on that. And I know just from seeing you in the training centre, especially when there's new starters or there's completion weeks and they're getting the tools and the stock, you do genuinely care about the apprentices doing well and the installers who are established doing well as well. It's great that they have your support as well. But thank you very much for joining the podcast. It's really appreciated.
Thank you,
and I am sure we will see you in centre very soon.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure you will. I think it's only probably a week away before we've got the next one.
Yeah. So, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, no, thanks,
appreciate
Dan.
it.
Really good.
Cheers,
mate.
Thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of the Future Skills podcast. Absolutely fantastic to have Dave on the podcast. Over 40 years experience in the industry, and he genuinely does care about the apprentices, anybody that's coming through for training, and it's great to see the support he gives to the guys and girls. We look forward to the next episode, and we'll speak to everyone soon.